Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in. Good afternoon. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. It is Friday. It's a beautiful Friday, and as we just about finish up the week here, they're alongside my partners, Bobbi and Buddy. Good to have you guys back.
Great to be here.
Someone's always gone. It's either me or you or someone. So we are together.
Because we're moving and grooving. There's stuff to do here.
All over the place.
This is not a dress rehearsal, right?
That is true. And you might have to worry if we didn't have enough things to do where we are always here every single Friday. That's right. A lot of stuff going on. Got a great show for you today. Just a couple reminders before we get started. Way to listen to us at the radio, KDOW 1220 AM. You can also listen to us live during the live portion 3 to 4 at kdow.biz. Most importantly, we'd love to have you download the app. That way you have access to the podcast, and that is at reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. You'll be hearing over the next couple of weeks, we'll be discontinuing the live shows. The exciting news, however, is we're going to continue the podcast. So nothing will change, and what I mean by that is you'll be getting this information is just as strong, just as better. We're going to have the great guests, the great content, and we're going to continue to educate and inform you to make you a wise consumer. That's our goal. That's our objective. The only thing that's going to stop is the live shows. So what you want to do, if you haven't done so, is download the app, the RE Radio Live app, and that way you can listen to the podcast anywhere, anytime at your convenience. We're a live show. We love your calls and questions during the show. You can communicate with us. Give us a call, 1-800-516-1220. So we have a great topic today, the housing supply crunch. Someone might say, what do you mean, the crunch? We're going to talk about that. The options, the crunch, for sure. We're going to discuss the options. This is a big topic, and some of our answers would not be easy, actually, to implement by the bureaucracies that we're dealing with from time to time and need to take action as well. So we're going to cover some of that. Not because they're not impossible, but just trusting some of these bureaucracies, I guess you guys know. We don't have to educate you on those. You've been seeing a lot of those on TV. And
You think, Joe?
We shouldn't go that way. Yeah. It's too soon to start that direction.
All of our dialogue about unintended consequences.
So today is going to be some controversial times, but all of us love controversy, don't we? That's what we
people
swim in.
live on it.
We live in it.
Yeah. I mean, there was that dinner last night for the Cardinal.
Oh, yeah.
In New York.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, the stuff that was said to each other. I mean, I just had to shut it off. I remember going to Cardinals dinners, and you couldn't say things like that, Joe.
That's another topic. To me, I'm embarrassed by the whole process.
I know. Well, it's going to be over soon. It's going to be over soon.
Thank God.
And Halloween's coming, so kind of lends a bit of humor to it all.
So let's get to the part that people are important or want to hear about. And so what's the plan here, Bobbi?
Well, what we're going to do is take on some of the establishments and how they created this crunch.
Okay.
And we're going to cover things that are working, things that can help. Mm-hmm. People need to look outside the box. And, Buddy, why don't you just start us on that? And you've got to think outside the box nowadays to get anything to work right.
Yeah, and that's not always an easy process for government bureaucracies.
No.
They get kind of locked into their patterns, and there's some issues around that, and that's where I'm going to start. So we've talked about the bureaucracies. I'm going to get into it some more. But I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, okay? Because there's some bright spots on the peninsula. Mm-hmm. One of the places, if you drive down almost any street in Redwood City, my goodness, are they building, lots of housing. They're just
on a whole makeover. I mean, they are the number one increase in price in the last 5 years on the peninsula because they were so low. The schools weren't great. The downtown wasn't great. The housing wasn't great. Then Kaiser made it all come alive with their upgrade of their facilities. And then you've got the downtown area, Fox
Wonderful.
Theater's back.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's fabulous. And those prices have really risen because they were cheap, and now they're right up there.
Yeah, well, I had jury duty this week in Redwood City. That's why I kind of referenced it here. Parking it's impossible. We got a jury duty parking lot. That was full. I had to wind up parking out on the street somewhere about 2-3 blocks from the courthouse. So, I mean, that's what's going on. But the Wall Street Journal, this was page 2 of 1019, talked about land use rules under fire. So you know what happens. We've got all these rules that have been put in place that say what you can and can't do. And the dialogue in that article really kind of led to the concept of this show a little bit. So there's two gentlemen that did some research around these rules. Daniel Shog, associate professor of public policy at Harvard University, and Peter Gagnon. He's a postdoctoral fellow in the National Bureau of Economic Research. The report demonstrated more of those kind of unintended consequences we always talk about when you really look at land use policy. Okay, the bottom line is that many cities and counties rules almost entirely push people to focus on building high-end properties because the rules make it very difficult to build the low end and make it profitable for developers. So those rules you have to take a hard look at them and say, okay, who's going to fix those rules? Who's going to do what with those rules? The good old days, flexibility was a real good idea, but that doesn't seem to be as apropos today as it once was.
No, it sure does not. So, is there an answer?
Yeah, well, I think the exceptions and the flexibilities always work when you really do it as a well thought out process. So the bureaucracies that are willing to look at critical needs and realities are making some changes that work. The article, of course, called out our San Francisco metro area as one of the big problem areas.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. We kind of get I get that. I remember some things that Steve was telling us, Steve Blanton, when we were talking about the rent control stuff. But we've got some folks in here in the area that are working on it. There's a group called ABAG. It's the Association of Bay Area Governments. And their responsibility is to look around and try and set policy that talks about building and setting quotas for a variety of building environments, if you will. The problem is they don't have a lot of teeth to really enforce what's going on. It looks like Redwood City, as an example, took their quota and requirement and ran like crazy. Others have not. And there may be some extenuating circumstances. Then there's another group called the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. They pronounce it RENA. They look at apparently an even wider area. Now, I'm a little concerned. We've got these two groups trying to do what it sounds like some of the same things. I could be wrong. We probably should have some people on from them.
Yeah.
But is this a situation where you've got overlapping responsibilities? And that often happens in some bureaucracies. Those overlapping responsibilities can make things go slow instead of fast. So there's at least some action going on. These folks that did the report recommended what they call a cap-and-trade system, a house and trade. So that will allow municipalities to trade the minimum housing quotas amongst themselves and get money. If they are going to do it, they'll get some higher value out of it. So there's some things in process, and I'm sure there's some more that if we had a longer show we could have dug into and found out more. But at least there's some action going on.
Very good. Well, Bobby, you have the big one we've spoken about before. Can't sell my home in the Bay Area because of what? Guess what? The taxes are going to kill me. What do I do? What do you do? I'm sitting here with my hands on my hips, rolling my eyes. What am I going to do?
I want to move. I'd like to downsize. I'd like to go someplace else, but
I know, and that's the problem. And there are a number of people who actually are, Joe. Just they've gone to their assisted living, but they're leasing out their houses. They're getting $10,000, $15,000. I mean, these are big, big homes in Hillsborough, Burlingame, San Mateo, and that actually helps to pay for their assisted care. However, the stock, the inventory is locked up. So what they're trying to do now, and I hope that you can't hear my cough drop. Because I have the same cold I had last week.
But you're fine.
You sound much better, darling.
But we had wonderful Jeremy, the engineer, who could mute my coughing every time I went into fits of cough. Love that guy. I'm telling you, every show needs an engineer.
So you know the good quality of a person, buddy? When you show up injured and you play, and that's Bobbi.
That's right.
There I am.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm playing hurt today.
She's a trooper, right?
Yeah.
She's hurt and she shows up.
Yeah. Here we go.
So you got
be in the game.
Your beautiful little house that you bought for $60,000, and there was a time, Joe, in the 70s where $60,000, $80,000 for a house was a lot of money. And now they're worth $2 million. So you take, if it's a couple, they take their forgiveness of $500,000. So now they've got $580,000 in a basis. But of course they've done upgrades over the years, whatever. So take it out to $700,000, $800,000. They still have $1.2 million in capital gains. It's out there. So what Mr. Ricard.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Ricard. Yeah,
came in and did the 1031 exchange program. He was explaining how you move out for 2 years, then you can make it an income-producing property. So that $1.2 million can now be tax deferred, and you buy something else with it. The thing is that you've got to be really careful about that 2 years, because if you go out 2 years, then it no longer is your primary home, right?
Correct.
And then if you don't have it the 2 years, the IRS is going to say, yeah, right, it's an income property, because, you know, they trust everybody. But actually, here's a great call-out. Those of you who missed that wonderful program with Ron Ricard, go into our podcast.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of the podcast.
Go back, no commercials, so it's only, a half an hour when they take out all of the commercial breaks.
It gives you an option, a way to really continue to roll up the value of the property, the value that you've created, but defer the taxes. And then if we get to the point where we've got the roll up and we're about to leave the planet, a new basis point, huh?
Well, it's just that, it's awful to think somebody's going to move to assisted living and just wait until they pass on in order to get that stepped-up basis, Joe.
I know. There's the alternatives. You got to be able to use the alternatives, and you talked about some of them. I mean, passing along to the children. There's a number of different things you could do, but this tax issue is holding people up. We've talked about it before. Big time.
Yeah, we'll talk about it some more after the break, too. We've got some ideas here.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we will continue our topic today, the housing supply crunch. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, or you just want to say, Bobbi, I'd love to hear you, and it's nice to hear you even though you're not feeling well. Give us a call, 1-800-516-1220. We'll be back with you to continue in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
Bobbi Decker is a recognized veteran of the real estate industry with 30 years of assisting clients to buy and sell property. Educating the public through her television programs, radio interviews, web streaming, websites, and newspaper articles helps people gain valuable knowledge that makes them better suited to accomplish their home ownership or sales goals. Ms. Decker is a vice president at today's Sotheby's International Realty, part of the global family. With 660 offices in 47 countries, she provides extensive marketing resources and services to her clients that have a wide set of needs, from selling properties on the San Francisco Mid-Peninsula and Silicon Valley to trophy ranches and vacation properties in the Sierra Foothills. When clients have needs in other parts of America or the world, she can refer them to other Sotheby's International Realty or Sotheby's Auction House locations. Contact Bobbi at BobbiDecker.com. That's BobbiDecker.com. Or call 650-346-5352.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, sitting alongside Bobbi and Buddy. Happy Friday to all. The housing crunch, the housing supply crunch is our topic today. We're discussing that, and if you have any things you'd like to chime in on about this topic or anything, remember, anything real estate we could help you with, 516-1220. As we roll through, I think, Bobbi, we're going to continue talking about some of the options here.
We are, and just to kind of hit home on figures, Joe, if you take $1 million, say you have $1.2 million gain equity in your place, and you put that up against, you can say 38%, but for doing it in my head, say 40%, because when you add the tax in from federal and state, it gets up there, and so 40% of $1.2 million is $480,000.
That's tough to just
that
ship
is
to
really
Uncle
hard
Sam.
to swallow.
Well, it's really hard to swallow for sure. And the other part of it is, if they didn't do such wonderful things with our tax money.
I know.
Oh, boy.
It's like if
There we go.
Don't. Buddy knows never to say that to me. That's fighting words.
Well,
I go. I
wouldn't
can't pay
mind
my
paying our
taxes.
fair taxes, right?
That's right.
I don't mind, but put
What
it
the
to
hell are
good
you doing
use.
with them?
Oh, let's send $1 trillion to the Middle East. Come on, that's going to work
All
out.
right, I
real
want to
good,
bring
isn't
it back to our Ron Ricard, who's the special guy. The one that you two could go on and on forever on
Let's
taxes.
get political.
and
Let's go.
political.
Come on, let's go.
Go.
So anyway, anyone who's listening in, remember one thing. This is a Bobbyism. Check with an investment person.
Yes.
Check with your CPA. Check with a tax attorney. Because if you do it wrong, you don't get a do-over with the IRS. You're toast. So don't be handing off your properties to your kids and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, because they're not going to care. You did it. They're going to get hit with the consequences. So, and if you want someone that does tax-deferred exchanges like Ron Ricard, his number is 408-483-1031, just like tax-deferred
Get
exchange.
creative.
Yeah,
Get creative.
Yeah, let's look at the bottom line here. As people get smarter and use these tactics to not avoid, but to kind of push the tax, defer it out. But then we get into the stepped-up basis plan. The government's actually going to lose money. So they're worried about short-term, give me my money right now, where if you get a stepped-up basis and they get zero.
And we need to explain to our listeners to stepped-up basis. That means once you pass on, whoever inherits the house gets the value of it on the day that you pass it on.
Yeah.
So if they sold it within the next few days, and they made a little bit more money than that stepped-up basis, that's all they'd pay taxes on. So they pay taxes on maybe $50,000 instead of what we were talking about before, $1.2 million. So,
and that's one thing that a lot of people forget to do, because, Joe, they're overwhelmed when they lose somebody they love. I mean, that's just natural.
Absolutely.
But don't forget to get a time of death evaluation, appraisal.
Yeah. No,
you can actually get them from realtors, but if they're unsure about what's happening in the market, then you go and pay for one. It'll be the best $500 to $900 or whatever they're charging now money you can pay, because you need that in order to be able to justify what happens down the road.
None of us are CPAs, but we all know how critical it is to visit them. What happens? And I'll just these people. I just had a call today. A guy is wanting to. House is worth about $800,000. He's gifting $400,000 of that to his daughter. So she has to come up with the other $400,000 in form of a loan. But he's saying this much equity is going towards your down payment. I wonder how that works for his tax, if any consequences of gifting that.
It sounds scary to me.
Intra-family stuff is now. Ron knows it.
Yeah, right.
And these are all the propositions.
Yeah.
If you give it to your kids. But the thing is that they think that they're helping them out, and then, they're giving them the lower tax base. But you've got to be really, really careful, and don't try to skimp on pennies when it's going to cost you thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And sending more and more money to Uncle Sam is not the most
think
pleasurable
twice
thing to
before.
do.
By the way, also think twice before you try to make your life better for your children. Come on. Be careful with that.
A little struggle, goes a long way.
A little struggle is good for sure. Absolutely. So what are we going to do? We're going to take a break here. I know that in a minute or so.
Right, but we need business people in government to get it. And our politicians don't. They get elected and they start worrying that they're not going to get their next election. You know, Joe,
or how many more
limits that,
or how many more regulations can we add to the millions of regulations we've already put on the books?
You can't. We're over-regulating everything, and it's kind of like another situation, the helicopter moms. I mean, you know, guys, you gotta experience life. Yeah. It's ups, it's downs, and trying to protect everybody from everything. It doesn't. Even my dog knows the world can be cruel. That's why she loves living with us.
Yeah, no, you can't do it. You got to move along, and there's so much to this. You know, we're certainly not going to solve it all in one day, but this is what is important about this show, and this is what we all love to do, and that is provide you with the consumers with all this information. Sometimes it may be overwhelming, and that's why we do encourage you to sit down with someone. If it's real estate, Bobby, sit down with a CPA. If you need financing advice, I could help you. You know, attorneys, Ron Ricard, we talked about the 1031 exchange. Don't let it be overwhelming. Just take some notes, settle in, do some due diligence, and take some steps to get the answers. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back, we're going to continue the housing supply crunch. If you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220. We'll be back with you to continue in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, joined alongside Bobbi and Buddy. It's Friday afternoon as we wrap up the week, getting close to the weekend. The conversation or topic today is the housing supply crunch. We're working our way through that. If you have any questions, issues, comments, concerns, 1-800-516-1220. We've been talking about some of the variables, some of the things you have to be careful of. Now I want to talk a little bit about, Buddy and I had two programs with Steve Blanton, right? You guys had two with the CEO of the San Mateo County Association of Realtors. I know he was on with us, and then he came on again, I think, when I wasn't here a week or so ago. Yeah. He's great. Does a great job.
Well, he's looking at a tough issue, rent control.
Rent control measures in San Mateo and Burlingame. And if you heard any of that, we got a couple of calls actually while we was in the studio. Yeah. Really, really good. The name sounds good, but the details, once understood, may make these two propositions a problem rather than a solution for sure. And especially if you listen to Steve, that is for sure. He brought some things to my attention that day.
Scary.
That I had no idea.
Me too.
And that's a wonderful thing about life is you always learn, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
I couldn't believe some of the things that prohibit people from raising rent or some of the moratoriums.
The unintended
consequences. Yeah,
that big number of rental units that are not on the market.
10,000 rentable units off the market.
In San Francisco.
And they're talking about a shortage, right?
Yeah, totally. So they've made the rules so stringent, so complex. I would imagine they're just waiting to get the place empty and then sell it.
Yeah.
Let somebody else worry about it.
And then the worst case, what about the case that I know of in our complex? The man owns 2 units. They've both been sitting empty since he went to assisted care. He doesn't want to sell them because there's no stepped-up basis. And there's 2 beautiful units in a beautiful community that people could be loving.
Yeah,
and they're
just sitting there. Yeah.
You know, and it's because we've over-regulated, Joe.
So he's got to die to make sure that he gets the stepped-up basis for his family. What a smart program that is, huh? That the government sort of fostered.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm getting excited.
That's all right. This over-regulation, there's a little tiny little group called the CFPB that I talk about that every once in a while, about overregulation.
Just,
but we'll move on.
we will move.
All right, so let's
Onward and upward.
I'm
going
to jump into some good news.
All right.
Yes.
So
it's
Bobby,
private.
Bobby mentioned earlier about we need some business people
Yes.
in and around government and other places to get some of this done. Well, it's starting. Facebook is planning to build 1,500 housing units, 15% of which will be for low and middle income people. Now, unfortunately, that's a wonderful positive step, but they're going to hire 6,500 more people to fill their new headquarters facility. So it's kind of it's a nice token gesture, and we need more of that because that kind of thinking can go solve some of the problems. But the problems are so big, it would take a lot of thinking and a lot of companies doing similar things to make sure that started to really solve the problem.
Right.
Well, the social awareness of the younger, the millennials take a lot of heat for doing a lot of stuff not right. But one thing, and Carol Rodoni, I know you've had her here as a speaker.
Super.
Fabulous. One of the things they are getting right, Joe, is that because they have so much money, there isn't that hierarchy to have to earn money to feed a family, to do this, to do that. So they're being very magnanimous and kind of social in what they want to do. And part of this housing component that Facebook's looking at, Carol brought it to our attention, is going to be for first responders.
Yeah,
right?
Really?
There's a 5-year plan, either for very low rent or no rent. I mean, it's phenomenal, and I really wish I had the detail. I'll go dig it out,
Wow.
and on another program, I'll bring it to you as she presented it.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal thing, and it's private business. It's going to be these entrepreneurs that have a lot of money and want to spend it wisely, not give it to the government in taxes. Use it wisely.
Well, that is good. That's exciting. Yeah, we're going to have to dig some of that up and talk a little bit about that on a future show.
Yeah, I think Google's doing some things too. I just
Right.
didn't have
And
time to really dig in all the way.
Apple is too.
Yeah, they really have to, and they'll do things that will make sense.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the housing supply crunch. Again, any questions, 1-800-516-1220. We'll be back with you to continue in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, sitting alongside Bobbi and Buddy on this beautiful Friday as we roll into the weekend. Just a reminder once again, as of November 9th, we will discontinue the live shows. So really, really important. We want to continue to deliver this wonderful content material, great guests to you to help you, provide you, make wise decisions in and around your real estate. You can get that, continue to get this wonderful information via podcast. So go to RERadiolive.com, get the app, download the podcast, and you can listen to it anywhere, anytime, at your convenience. And that is the way of the future, ladies and gentlemen. It's tough for some, but the bottom line is that's how we get the information out to so many more people, and we could help so many more people, and that's our goal for sure. All right, any more questions that you have about that or the topic of the show, 1-800-516-1220. When we left the last segment, Bobbi, Buddy, we're talking a little bit about some of the benefits, some of the good things that are going on. Of course, there is Habitat for Humanity, right? It's a great organization most of us know about to get involved with, but there's some others that you should look into. So we have EAH. It's a nonprofit housing corporation that depends on state funding, and it looks like that is an issue with many of the committed projects. Actually, they're on hold due to state funding. That's a tough one. I mean, anytime you hear state, we could get into all kinds of funding issues there. Problems. Mercy Housing and Health, more of a homeless and poverty issues there, and that's another. Boy, we got all kinds of problems to solve here, don't we?
We do, and housing is a central focus for so many of the problems. I mean,
well, no matter where you look at it, because you have people that own homes, you have people that rent homes, you have people that need housing, you have people that can't afford housing, you have people that can't even afford to get food. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
And most of what we want for everybody is shelter, some type of shelter, right?
Right.
So
yeah, that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right at the important point is shelter is a critical part of people's life.
And lastly, the other one we're talking, the first community housing, it's low and moderate income housing throughout the Bay Area. I could tell you, as we transition, move along, that's a tough one. I know everybody really is up. When you hear about that, people get excited about it. Low to moderate income housing. I know the problem is, around this area is that's just a tough battle. It's just a tough battle.
Yeah, well, we talked about with the regulations, so the developers have a hard time affording to build something for people in that economic strata because all the regulations make it very difficult. One of the things that was in that article about a developer in San Francisco with a 5 feet setback from the line that precluded them from building 16 additional bedrooms. If they shrunk that by 2 feet, if they gave him that 2 foot flexibility, they could add 16 additional bedrooms to the housing that he's building, and he's building housing for medium income folks. So there's that unintended consequences again.
And then you have the great people. I was on HIP Housing Investment Project. They do wonderful things in the Mid-Peninsula. They're great, Joe. And then they've got people in San Francisco that are adopting that same approach with the Episcopal Community Services. And we had them on one of the programs.
They were on the program.
And then you've got NPH, which is the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. Every one of the people that sit on this board is trying so hard to make it more affordable. And then you know what else you've got? I'll go with the NPH for a minute. But that is composed of like 750 housing developers, you could hear my voice, advocates, community leaders, businesses, all trying to secure resources and to promote good policy, to educate the public that, what do we call it? Rent control isn't going to solve the problem because you know why? The bureaucrats are going to get involved, Joe, and then you can just forget it. You allow any bureaucrat into anything, and that whole entire pie is done. Yeah. Cooked. Done. Fini, fina. Yeah. It is. And I know, having sit with these people, they're always looking for money. And I would rather give to somebody like Housing Investment Project and the ones that I just mentioned in San Francisco, because I know that they are trying their best to keep that to an 80% going to housing and only 20% overhead, or even less.
But you brought it up, Bobby, though. That means you've got to give some money, you've got to give some time, you've got to give support. You have to get personally involved. We can't sit on the sidelines and read about these things or do the research about these things. You got to really get in and participate. So you were on that board, and that was very helpful. They came up with beautiful programs that are now San Francisco is copying the programs, and there's other organizations like that. We've got to find them, get in behind them, and help them achieve the goals, because they're part of the solution, the series part of the solution.
I've done an interview several times with the senior vice president with Fannie Mae, Doug Duncan, and just spoke to him and a couple of weeks ago on the phone. And he was telling me a little bit about what you were talking about, and you just mentioned, Bobby, and I think we've discussed this before, and that is, for instance, they're having a hard time trying to expand some parameters in Fannie Freddie and just expand the boundaries, get it out of the box, right?
Yeah.
And he said to me, and it was like crystal clear as could be, he says, the problem, Joe, is we hire nothing but intellectuals and people that are very book smart, but most of these people we hire, they have no practical experience. Some of them don't own homes. Some of them don't understand investment property. But yet they're sitting on these committees making decisions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the NIMBYs. We haven't even talked about the NIMBYs, not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. Don't put that train through my door.
That's right. It can go through my neighbor's door, but you've got to avoid mine. But, the NIMBYs make it hard, too. Yeah. Because we are going to get, land's too expensive, Joe. It's got to be going up. It's got to go up, and that's why you're going to see elevators. That's going to be the next big thing. They made them down in L.A. because they had to build up on the beaches, and all those houses had elevators. People were astounded. But that's the only way you can get up and downstairs if you're old.
That is true.
Ride right to the top in that beautiful elevator.
You got it.
That's right. All right, we're going to take is this our last break?
No,
yes.
I think it is, maybe.
Huh? Oh, you gentlemen need to count. No, yeah.
Yeah, this is our last break.
Oh, no.
Time is flying. We're going to take it, believe it or not, because we have no choice. We're going to come back and finish up. If you have any other questions, 1-800-516-1220. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back to finish up in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon as we wind down the show. Just a few minutes left here. We're talking about the housing supply crunch, and we're going to roll along here with as much time as we have left. The mini housing trend. So that is something that's kind of exciting, although I'm a little claustrophobic by thinking about that.
Well, you're kind of tall, Joe.
Yeah,
your mini house would be a maxi house.
Yeah. But it is a trend, and people
it is.
The younger people are saying, I want to live in the experience world, and I don't need a great big house, and so a smaller facility is just fine. Thank you very much, because we're going to be out going to Paris next week instead of hanging around the pool. Yeah, instead of hanging around the house and reading the newspaper.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, too, is partly kind of the going green theme, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Less resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And going up, we're going to see more going up. I mean, now you see them all along the 580 corridor, Kaufman Road, a whole bunch of builders. They're all going up, Joe. They're going 4 levels with the garage on the bottom and going. But I haven't seen a lot of them putting elevators in. But with the boomers aging, I think that's going to be the next big trend.
I'm sure of that. Also, we've got the good news about all the software and services that we can do over the web now. Collaboration is getting much more, I'll call it personal. You could, with Skype and all the different facilities, to really talk and work together. So the people working remotely from their home. So that's going to make it easier for some people to live a substantial distance away from work but still get their work done. As we all know, once you get your computer in front of you, you're working more than 8 hours a day usually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work out as well as we'd like.
Well, the first time I see a driving range on the top of a 160-story building like they have in Japan or China, then I know that we are progressing and moving along those directions.
We've gone the right way. Where do they shoot the balls to? Out over the ocean or something?
No, big old net.
Ah, okay.
Out over the top. It's crazy. Have you ever seen those?
No.
It's crazy.
Because not being a golf nut like you are. Sorry.
I am a golf and a nut at the same time, for sure.
See, you could get back at him by asking him how he likes octopi.
That's
octopus.
true.
Which you see at the bottom of the ocean whenever we go scuba or snorkeling. So.
Before we cut out, there are, certainly still some bright spots. Praise those that are working and to move in the issue of some fixes forward. We all have to do our best, for sure. Get engaged with nonprofits. Look at the local cities and towns are trying to do to support the right approach. I mean, the bottom line is all of us are frustrated on many different levels, many different reasons, but I think if we all try to do our part, we could do the best we can.
Yeah, if we all got engaged more actively, things would happen.
And you need to get engaged because, like I just said at the beginning, it's not a dress rehearsal. We've got to make an impact on the world. Right.
Before we cut out, if you need anything in your housing needs, buying, selling, consulting, Bobby, what's the best place to reach you?
1-800. What's 650? I got 650-346-5352. That's text or phone.
All right. We're going to cut out. Have a great weekend and a great afternoon. We'll be back with you next week. Take care. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, sitting beside Bobbi and Buddy. Take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.